Ken here again. Okay, let's just get right into it. I keep having this impending sense of doom, which, okay, amusingly enough is why I'm here, right? I mean, told you all, things are about to get really freaking bad. They're gonna get really strange. This isn't just World War III, this isn't just demons popping out of the void. If it was just demons popping out of the void, coming to get you, I'd be preparing you for demons, okay? If it was just Vladimir Putin getting into it with Donald Trump or even Obama, I would just say, guys, okay, you need to dig a fallout shelter. You need to get with somebody to help you out, get your preps ready or something. We wouldn't be doing that. We wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't about something so much weirder, so much stranger, so much bigger. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, okay? And quite frankly, most of you aren't gonna get it anyway, it doesn't matter. We had personnel looking into this who went insane just by hearing about the information that has been coming. I made it, at least I think I made it. I mean, that's really up to you. Maybe I'm just totally gone. Okay, fine. But we had people that literally went into a comatose state and now spend time wearing nice jackets fastened in the back, drooling quite a bit. Sometimes in padded rooms because they're that freaked out constantly. And I don't really blame them. There's a reason why I'm not just explaining this. It's not the little thing. And really, if it was just any one part of it, maybe I could do it. It's that it's going to combine all together. So, I'm gonna get back to the SCP information here. And just to remind you all that this is a fiction, okay? Keep that in mind. The SCPs are fictional. They've got a nice website at www.scp-wiki.net. This is a great place to go and look for this, or you can go to Google and Google SCP Foundation. If you've just been listening to stuff on YouTube, you can go to YouTube. There's some great YouTubers out there who are doing readings of these things for your entertainment. I highly recommend listening to it. I highly recommend it that you go and you look at the information on the website, read through all of it. They also have an RPG game, and SCP-245 introduces you to that RPG game in their very typical fashion, presenting it as an SCP, which is really, really cute. The thing is that you're not wasting your time playing games right now. Not the weird ones. What is it? I looked up something about White Wolf games. They do vampires. It's actually a little tame, honestly. Maybe the SCP RPG game is something a little bit more intense that way to push you into different thoughts. But even something as old-fashioned and simple as Dungeons and Dragons, damn it, at least it's not just sitting there, just not knowing that anything is going to happen. At least you're pushing yourself a little bit. Read books, read weird books. I'll get you a recommendation. Matter of fact, I've got one that came across a few years ago that's actually something I had to investigate. Quite frankly, if these SCPs were real, the book would be in there, and you can just get it online. I'll do a project on that. It's it's weird. Pretty harmless though, so that's the only reason why I'd be willing to tell people about it. Probably the only reason it's still up. So, into the SCPs. SCP-245 was the RPG, and 249, SCP-249 now. SCP-249 appears to be a windowless door covered in faded white paint. It was first found in a house located within the small town of Redacted. When opened, SCP-249 does not lead to the other side of the doorway, but to a random door within 850 meters. Items that go through the subject are teleported to that other door regardless of what may be between the door and SCP-249. When observed from the destination, the door appears to open on its own accord, and whatever goes through SCP-249 appears out of thin air. When opened, the subject takes on the appearance of the door it is connected to. When shut, SCP-249 is no longer connected to that door and reverts to its standard appearance. However, roughly every 500 uses, the subject does not connect to a door within range, but instead to a random location anywhere in the world, even locations with no parent doors within hundreds of kilometers. When the 500 use mark approaches, common use of SCP-249 is stopped and tests are done to record its exit location. Since its discovery, a log has been kept documenting these cases, and then they give you the cases below. Instead of going over all of that, well worth going over, what we're looking at here is a spatial distortion. I'd love to tell you that just opening a door and walking out into a different room isn't a real thing or doesn't happen or is all a mental effect, but it's actually pretty common. You may have even noticed it happen in your own life. Now, sometimes it is a mental effect, and is something that does get people. In your own life, you've probably had at least one occasion where you were doing something, suddenly you're somewhere else doing something else, and you can't remember what happened between point A and point B. Normally, if you talk to people, you were just walking around in what seemed a regular fashion. Sometimes, nobody knows where you were. Does that mean you'd vanished? Who knows? But, yeah, well, there are incidences of this, at least reported. Now, it's really hard because most of these things are pretty random, and it's not a specific door that takes you from point A to point B or point A to one of 100 different point Bs that you can just test and work with consistently, like in this SCP. But, yeah, definitely look through the door first. That's all I can tell you, is look through the door first. Going through doors. It's really rare, though, that this kind of thing happens. I don't worry about it, honestly, day to day. But I've heard some stories. Never had this specifically happen. I did have one incident working in a specific situation I can't talk about, where I did end up temporarily in a different dimension, but I went right through a wall for that. It was a little bit more intense than a door, and no, the wall didn't break, because then you could explain why I thought it was in a different dimension. I was gone for a few minutes. Anyway, I can't really get into that, but spatial distortions definitely happen. Matter of fact, the smoothness of the world that you see in both time and space is the illusion. The world is bumpy. It runs fast in some places, slow in others. The space is bent in certain places. Sometimes even within a room, you'll have space being wider on one end than on the other. Things like that. It's just part of our reality. And in the room you're in right now, just the air molecules, some of them are below freezing and some of them are past the boiling point in temperature. We smooth things out to be homogeneous to our minds so that we can handle the world. And that's not the way it really is all the time. SCP-257. SCP-257 is an abandoned zoological garden and park located in redacted United Kingdom. The zoo itself, described as a collection of curiosities, is named for William Wordsworth. Now, this is why I got this. It's the collection of curiosities, not William Wordsworth, though that name is really familiar. Possibly just from fiction, I don't know. Anyway, it was billed as, Wordsworth billed as the greatest explorer and naturalist this side of reality. According to promotional materials found within SCP-257, the zoo was founded in 1899 to educate the gentlemen and ladies of England about nature and the many strange beasts encountered by explorers in their travels. No permits, building licenses, or planning permissions have been found that correspond to the location or appearance of SCP-257. Several signs and notices indicate that the zoo has been temporarily closed for maintenance, but the dilapidated appearance of the park and outdated equipment suggests the park has not or has been abandoned for at least 50 years. At irregular intervals, animals will appear within the zoo's confines by an unknown manner. These animals appear in various enclosures at random intervals simultaneously. A handwritten manual appears at the entrance of the zoo inside the ticket booth. These guides detail the proper care and feeding of each organism and sometimes reveal information about its origin and acquisition. The animals vary widely in appearance, behavior, and classification. Many do not appear to be related to any terrestrial animals. There does not appear to be any schedule as to when these animals are delivered. Okay, we really have two things here, and these are, real things to pay attention to if we're just going to work from this outward. The first one is the collection of curiosities. There are people who have collected strange things throughout history. And generally, the people who are good at it will have rather extensive collections of things that are just bizarre. Things that don't really make logical and consistent sense all the time. It's kind of thought that these individuals have something special going on, and nobody's really certain what that is all the time. Very often they're wealthy people, and it's believed that just the fact that they have the money to spend to travel to places and then procure items for cash is what really does it, along with interest. We see similar types of people now in cryptid enthusiasts, people who hunt Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster. Big difference is in finding things, and the most successful people tend not to name them first. The people who hear about strange things going on and then go to simply look do better than people who are going after Bigfoot or Nessie or champs in Lake Champlain. So, yeah, it's a thing. And some of these collections are really fascinating and kind of speak of a lot. There's a lot in hidden archaeological structures that we're just not allowed to know about, a lot in items and artifacts from ancient time periods, but also a lot that just appears to be slipping over from other realities. The mechanism for that is unknown, but right now, I think the best theory is that these things transfer over because we're in many realities all at once, and sometimes a person just happens to pick something up that technically is in a different reality than where they mainly are at the moment, but they're crossing over in that space. Again, we see it as homogeneous, but it's actually this pattern of extremes, just like all space and time are thought to be one local position that we're in all of the time. We see ourselves in the room we're in the time we're in, and it's kind of thought that alternate realities are much like that. The us in that alternate reality sees ourselves in that alternate reality, but on occasion things get close enough that we kind of blur those lines. I don't know if that's going to make sense to anybody. Let's see, the other one is the weird animals. Again, probably because of that same crossover effect, but with the advent of more and more people carrying around video cameras, cell phones particularly, we've been seeing strange creatures popping up, strange sightings. Would try to hide them. The organization has attempted to keep a lot of that offline, and has even put up fake stuff that's obviously fake to try and make everybody feel comfortable with the idea that everything is just computer graphics. But some of them aren't. Some of them make it up that are just things that people have seen, and particularly strange creatures. This is a thing that we're probably going to be seeing more of. Strange people, weird human beings. And I'm saying probably, but come on, guys, this is really, I mean, if you're paying attention, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, come on, this is the big show coming. Okay, SCP-259 is interesting. Not because of the specifics of it, just because they're saying it's a fractal image known as the Isinglass spiral, which basically opens up an Einstein-Rosen bridge. That's just a wormhole. It's a Stargate, if you want to go with popular fiction. Einstein-Rosen bridge, that's just what it means. Basically, we're talking about a drawing or an image, which will two-dimensional in character drawn on a page of paper can actually have a real three-dimensional solid effect. This is not totally unknown. Now, I'm not saying that I've ever seen anything that can open up a wormhole because you put a drawing down, but I have seen people do some drawings of simple devices, referred to as radionics devices, that can have real-world specific effects. Basically, they make a drawing of a simple piece of circuitry, which then if you treat it in a specific fashion, as in, touch a certain part of it, or put an object on a certain part of it, you can have effects in a given area that it is either attached to, located by, or indicated in the drawing somehow. How this works, nobody really knows. It's thought to actually be a mental effect, not a physical one, possibly operating within the bounds of how our subconscious psychic processes work. But the idea of making a drawing that does something, that's pretty legit. It does not seem to be totally disconnected from the human beings involved, which is something to keep in mind. Well, that's why I was talking about this, because, that's the thing. If you draw something that has a specific meaning to you, in the right fundamental manner, you can sometimes cause things to happen. With wards and sigils, protective magic that is drawn. Your subconscious mind will seem to invest the concept of that protection into the thing being drawn. The thing there, usually these effects aren't that powerful. Some people have managed to get greater effects by working with a team of people. The idea of, say, a witch's coven or a magician's circle or whatnot tends to work along those lines. Most people that do that tend to be really undisciplined mentally. If you're one of those people, that's not meant as an insult, it's meant as an indication that you can do more than you think you can. I would recommend on that that you start with meditation. The psychic phenomenon in human beings, even for the best, tend to be a little haphazard, though. I've got some thoughts on that. I can go over that later. Right now, let's get to the next SCP. Coming up with other material that doesn't even have to do with the fictional, often very good material that's being listed here. I cannot recommend going to the SCP Foundation website and reading through some of these enough. Listen to them on YouTube. These are really a wonderful way of stretching your brain out a little bit. SCP-246 is a skeletal humanoid. Okay, now the last time I had problems like this, I ended up losing 3 hours, so please pay attention. It could also just be me being a little fumble-tongued, but I'm having problems syncing suddenly. I'm just going to leave this in, or try to leave it in if I can. It's probably nothing, but just in case. Okay, so SCP-264 is a skeleton of humanoid appearance, estimated to be 2 meters in height. Its skull is slightly elongated, and 2 metal protrusions extend from either kneecap. Okay. The subject's torso and upper pelvis have either been replaced by or consist of a structure composed of unknown metallic substance. This resembles a temple of unknown origin. The structure is composed of several layers of balconies and terraces, with a door located in the approximate center. On one of the structures are dozens of carved statues that resemble men, women, and children, and in a few cases, animals. Statues are unable to be removed, although they appear to go about the standard activities of any tribal culture when not being viewed directly. The structure and skeleton seem to either have been mounted upon or are part of a hemisphere just over 1 meter in diameter, composed of what appears to be some unknown metal. The edge of the hemisphere is lined with evenly spaced spikes that are 2.5 centimeters. Okay, everything is going blurry. I'm really having problems focusing on this. It's becoming really difficult to speak. I don't know if it's the SCP I'm reading about. It seems weird, but yeah, I don't know what to tell you. It's like I can't. I'm gonna skip to the next one. This was SCP-264. Go and see if you can read it yourself. You might not have a problem with it. If this is something local to me here, or if I just need to eat or something like that, I don't feel hungry, but, if something is going on that way, then, that's just me, but, yeah, go see it. Go see if this has anything, any effect on the rest of you. Just because it is on me, if it is, that doesn't mean that it will on you. Remember, the SCPs are just stories. Don't be afraid to charge in. Honestly, I totally lost. I'm not quite certain what I'm doing. I know I'm doing the SCP things, and the one in front of me now is 265. Let's see if I can pull this out. SCP-265 appears to be a Series 1 GAZ M21 Volga automobile, devoid of any license plating, logos, or other identifying marks. It's painted black with white rimmed wheels and appears to be in pristine condition, regardless of environment. Some accounts note that it has white curtains in all but the front windows. Note that the production of the GAZ M21 ceased in 1970, with Series 1 being produced between 1958 and 1959. SCP-265 is absent of human occupants and appears to travel under its own power. Other details vary between encounters. It's common for individuals to report that the vehicle is silent while traveling, while others hear an engine idling for an extended period of time before noticing it nearby. Similarly, some accounts result in the vehicle leaving physical evidence such as tread marks on roads, where other encounters have no physical traces. It nearly always appears in scenarios which commonly elicit dread and paranoia in subjects, such as following lone travelers and idling in home driveways for a short while before driving off. SCP-265 has been encountered throughout rural Poland, far from urban centers, but occasionally passing through small rural communities with populations under 500. It's been encountered at various times late in the day, with confirmed encounters having occurred at any time between 1829 hours and 0813 hours, 6:29 and 8:13 in the morning. I don't know. I'll probably take part of the gaps out, but I just had a long gap in there where I was just sitting here looking at the screen and kind of forgot what I was doing. That is not a great sign. It had to be less than. Let me check this. Okay, according to the recording and little pattern on, there was only about 2 minutes. I'll try and take that out. This was way easier to read though than that last one, so I think maybe I'm getting a little clearer. It could just be that I zoned out for a bit for some reason. Mainly I was thinking about the need to dig my car out. There's a lot of snow on the ground still, and I can't really get out right now, but when I can, I need to be able to move. SCP-271 is a small disk, composition unknown, but metallic in nature. A little more than 3 centimeters in diameter, engraved with a number of symbols that may or may not represent an unknown alphabet. Now, I've certainly seen things like this before. Matter of fact, I have a picture here which appears to be a real item that is not SCP-271, most likely, because again, fiction. These symbols are infectious to their environment over time, gradually appearing as if invisibly carved in nearby objects. Now that is very interesting. They are capable of escaping through any hole, however minute, but have been demonstrated to be unable to penetrate non-gaseous fluids. Objects that carry the symbols for sufficient time begin to be changed on a molecular level to the same material as the SCP. Interesting. Okay, so it's kind of a contagious object in and of itself. At this time, both SCP-271 and SCP-271-01 are thoroughly coated with the engraved symbols and seem to swim slightly. Dr. VG and other observers have described them as looking like the far side of a heat wave, or not quite there all the time. Now, that is an effect that I have seen over objects, without heat being present, particularly in a transitory state. Symbols also appear to have fractionalized somewhat. Studies with enhanced or vision-enhancing equipment have revealed miniature symbols inside and around the larger carvings on both objects. fiction, and it's not bad. They have something they call the Church of the Broken God, which is an interesting organization for the SCP world. It's not real, but look up stuff on the Church of the Broken God, and you might learn a little something about some actual people out there. It's not real. I have to keep saying that to people. It's like, the SCPs are not real. I am not trying to, I don't want somebody to turn around and say, oh, but he was saying this is all real. But no, I'm saying that there are at times some similarities between things that could possibly be real without breaching any confidentiality contracts that I may or may not have signed in the past. I just know somewhere somebody's going to be in the comments saying, oh, this is fake. And duh. That's my entire point. The SCPs aren't real. Now, if you go and you look up some of the things I'm saying, you're going to find things that are real. If you've listened this far, you're not one of those people. You're not going to be one of those people, because they stop listening after 5 minutes and probably just take each one of these things. Will never pay attention to anything in it at all anyway. That's fine. Even what's coming. Well, if you don't know what's coming, if you can't wrap your mind around some of this stuff, you're not going to be able to wrap your mind around the reality of it either, and you're not going to be able to protect yourself anyway. So, if you can't handle listening to this, that's okay. Those people aren't bad. They're actually pretty normal, and it makes me sad that they might not be able to have a shot, but by that same token, we can't spend a lot of time on them. We kind of have to avoid the drama right now and instead work on ourselves. Let me get into this. SCP-273 resembles a middle-aged woman of Indian descent. DNA samples and medical tests indicate SCP-273 conforms to human normal in all other aspects, despite the subject's abnormalities. The subject feels no need to eat or drink in India, but is perfectly capable of doing so. The subject has generally shown willing compliance and cooperation with Foundation's containment and requests. The subject suffers from what is described as a hunger, which requires regular feeding every 12 hours. This hunger satiates itself through a form of remote combustion. Interesting. This produces no visible flames, instead oxidizing the subject from the outside in until reduced to a fine white ash. Metals are not consumed except under special circumstances. When tested, the hunger demonstrates a preference for meat over other organic matter, especially live human subjects. SCP-273 exhibits no signs of conscious control over its satiation and becomes upset upon consuming live animals. In response to testing with D-Class personnel, the subject screamed at OBSE, data expunged, this is just a poorly written sentence, sorry. But the subject became outraged, and retreated into a corner of its enclosure and refused to enter the front partition for 12 hours. Okay. So it's a human being who doesn't need to eat, but who has a weird form of hunger, which basically consumes materials, beings around it to feed. Yeah. I have never seen or heard of anything exactly like that. But then again, this is both fiction, and nothing in that is honestly anything that I would have doubted that much if it were given to me as a raw fact. Just wouldn't have. SCP-275 is a woman who cannot be physically damaged by any means available to the Foundation. Subject is of apparent Middle Eastern origin and claims to have grown up somewhere in the Ottoman Empire, but to have been a homeless orphan with no memories before the age of approximately 10. Subject claims to be 168 years of age, despite appearing to be in her mid-30s. Subject is 5'4" and weighs approximately 419 pounds, again despite having an appropriate and healthy sized figure. Hair and eyes are brown. She speaks both languages of the Middle East fluently and speaks English with a mild accent. SCP SCP-275 is perfectly normal in the fact that she needs to breathe, eat, and sleep. However, the subject is almost completely resistant to physical trauma, various forms of radiation, and extreme temperatures. By her own recollection, her flesh has never experienced any damage and her skin has never been pierced or scratched. Testing indicates that the majority of SCP-275's mass is composed of elements common to all organic life. However, it is currently believed that many of the structural compounds have been replaced with significantly more durable substitutes, and the subject's tissue also appears to contain significantly elevated amounts of various heavy metals. Foundation researchers have thus far been unable to collect tissue samples. Attempts have been made to x-ray the subject, but the results were inconclusive, such as skin contained significant quantities of radio-opaque elements, repelling most attempts to penetrate it with radiological or electromagnetic means. Diffractometry tests upon cell samples extracted from urine, feces, and menses indicate the presence of several novel polymers. However, the degree to which these polymers are represented in other tissues is speculative at best. This impenetrability of the subject extends to the entirety of the subject, including her hair and nails. Subject has claimed that her hair and nails have not been properly cut since she was 14, just before her condition manifested itself. In Foundation custody, her hair is to be cut by weekly exposure to a -watt laser, probably a terawatt laser, and her fingernails and toenails are to be abraded with an angle grinder on a bi-weekly basis, which does seem to indicate that they can at least erode or wear away portions of her body, which means that the impenetrability, while a strong factor, would not necessarily be one that they couldn't beat. In addition to this, due to her physical makeup and density, her biology has been slowed as well. Subject ages at least a fourth of the normal rate of aging. Also, her menstrual cycle is approximately 6 months long, with menses itself generally lasting 3 to 4 weeks. SCP-275's mental state has been described by Dr. Glass as worrying because her anomalous condition prevents her from experiencing most forms of sensation. She indulges in self-destructive behavior in an effort to perceive tactile stimuli. You'd think she'd actually stop that when it didn't work over a long period of time. This is a very interesting SCP story. You know, there are some things. For instance, if you look up the Indian tree man. Now, the flesh on his hands, the stuff that looked like tree bark, was tough enough that he was not easily cut or harmed due to the thick coating of skin. Now, this was just biological tissue that had grown and has recently, after I believe 16 surgeries, been removed, allowing him use of his hands again. But the point is that for a while, parts of his body were functionally not prone to damage. It kind of ruined his life, but now hopefully things are getting a bit better for him. But what my point is that that was just a mutation of warts that had started to grow on him. A very small change to something that many of us have had to deal with at some point in our lives on a much smaller level. Could a few small changes to our own genetics or environment cause something like this to happen? I'm gonna say we've got, 7.5 billion people. It might. I'm not trying to sell you on any specific thing or say that I've seen anything quite like that, but yeah, I mean, a person that would be really hard to hurt is probably out there. Let's guess. I have no proof. Anyway, SCP-279 appears to be a man in his early 40s of unremarkable appearance and dress, though that should be able to change. SCP-279 does not respond to any form of external stimuli and has not been observed to deviate from standard neutral expression. They've been reported to spontaneously disappear and reappear throughout Redacted, begins with a D, presenting unusual difficulties to agents required to monitor it. The subject seemingly spends the majority of time traveling through the town of the rest Redacted, attempts to eliminate SCP-279 failed, The subject continues whatever it is in the process of doing, regardless of any injury it has sustained. Small portions of SCP-279 attempt to continue locomotion even when separated from the whole. In light of this, attempts to dispatch the subject have been indefinitely postponed. All samples taken confirmed SCP-279 is human. At approximately 3 a.m., SCP-279 vanishes for 2 hours and returns in its original state at another location. Containment or restraint is impossible, as the SCP possesses an inordinate amount of strength when physically restrained, and has utilized its ability to spontaneously reappear in different locations when indirectly restrained. Kind of useful. Although it has no known motive, it does not have a known history of violent behavior. If it's not violent and just travels around, then why bother with it at all? Just put out a story that it's a ghost. Hide the pictures online, put out grainy CCTV footage, and... See, here's the problem with things like this. I'm getting enough into this that I'm looking at it and trying to parse it like I would a real report. Probably have noticed this in almost everything that I've said. These are fictional, and I've got to keep that in mind personally. My entire life has been spent working with things like this, where I had to try and find the reality of it. Let's see. Care must be taken to avoid direct skin contact when such is made. The person in question will vanish along with the SCP at the usual time of disappearance, if they're in contact with them, I imagine. Only one individual has been recovered after direct contact with the SCP, despite declass and equipment expended. The said individual appeared to be in a state of near catatonic shock upon recovering in a basement. After being relocated to Site-Redacted, the subject showed signs of being legally blind despite examinations proving vision was only slightly farsighted. Subject appeared to be reasonably lucid despite having shown signs of mental data expunge. Data expunge reported saying, "Get away from me," repeatedly, while data expunge, however, does not satisfactorily explain the injuries the subject incurred while confined to a straitjacket in a padded room. So basically, we appear to have a humanoid or a person who is otherwise unremarkable, except for they appear in locations repeatedly along a path, and if you're touching them, you can vanish. I feel like the bit like the old joke where the man goes to the doctor, raises his arm, waves it around in a circle over his head, and it says, "Doctor, my arm hurts when I do this." The doctor looks at the crazy antics and says, "Then don't do that." I wouldn't expend lives on something like this, or try and harm something that, quite frankly, appears to be rather innocuous. Don't run up and hug it while it's vanishing, and you should be okay. Again, I'm getting too into it. It's probably a sign that my mind's going here. We're hitting that 45-minute threshold. Let me break off here. I need to do something else. I'll try and get this. I'm trying really hard to get through things. I want to get 2 or 3 more of these, then I'll do that self-defense thing up that I talked about and just have it ready to go. It's just going to be me talking about objects around it in regards to situations that might be anomalous, as well as regular self-defense, because, quite frankly, at least for the time being, muggers are going to be a bigger problem than aliens, okay? So, I'll try and put that up. Hopefully 1 or 2 people will listen to it. I have no idea if anybody's going to pay any attention to any of this. Probably not, but that's okay. I've got to do my part. So, if you are listening to this, thanks.